Pennant race baseball's in full swing. We got a wacky trade deadline that's already super exciting. We're going to work through how to adapt your fantasy teams, what the implications are for those trades, what may be coming down the path here in the next couple of days. All coming up next on the RotoWire Fantasy Baseball Podcast. Happy Sunday night, everybody. Welcome to the RotoWire Fantasy Baseball Podcast. I'm Scott Jenstad, joined as always on Sunday nights by Jeff Erickson. If you could please rate and review the podcast. You enjoy listening to us all year. We help you some way in your fantasy draft or midseason moves. Leave us a good rating. Helps out the podcast a lot. Jeff, I know the answer to this, but how's everything going?
Life is good, my friend. Our Reds took 2 out of 3 from the Dodgers. Ellie De La Cruz homered. And more importantly,
got my shirt on, by the way, so
which is awesome.
That's why he homered.
Yes, and I thank you for your service. We do appreciate it there.
Of
Plenty of room aboard the bandwagon. Off the top, I got to just brag on my girls. My soccer coaching career ended with a bang today at AYSO Nationals. We won the girls 16U girls championship. 8 games, 8 wins, no goals allowed. Went out with a bang. I'm just over the moon about these kids. 13 years of coaching. This is the best team I've ever coached, and just great girls. Awesome time. I don't know what I'm going to do with all the time I have on Monday and Wednesday nights now, but I'm over the moon. Just, it's been such a ride, and I'm going to be loving life for a while there.
That's nice. You're like Bill Walsh, right? Win it and then go right off on the sunset.
Something like that. Yes,
that's awesome. So. But congrats to you. Congrats to your daughter. That sounds like you guys were pretty dominant.
Yeah, we were. And today was the championship game was a battle. This team from Fontana, we'll give them a shout. They were awesome too.
Does anyone outside of California do well? It seems like you're playing all California teams.
Yeah. Other brackets they were, but
so you're like in the California bracket then.
No, it's AYSO is bigger in California than other states. First of all, it's local. Other age groups, there were teams from all over that did better. There's like Hawaii brought a bunch of teams. There was a region from Florida that brought a bunch of teams. I think at the older levels, you get some tapering off of the team. A lot of kids go club by that point in time or do other activities. So I won't claim that the best players in the state or anything like that by any means, but it's for what the type of soccer we play, we were pretty damn good, and it was fun.
That's awesome. Well, congrats on that. Baseball wise, it's crazy. Usually we're like, is the trade deadline going to be interesting? And we wait till, the last hour of the deadline. We've got like 6 or 7 big trades already. Stuff that's messing up fantasy rosters, making FAAB more interesting. There was a trade that was announced that we'll talk about that was like an hour before the FAAB deadline tonight that actually affected what bids I was making. But let's start with the biggest. And we're just going to do the weekend trades. We won't talk about Lucas Giolito. That was last week. We talked about that. You guys talked about it in the podcast last week to the Angels. But Max Scherzer to the Rangers was the biggest news of the weekend. He agreed to the trade, gave up his no trade clause, agreed to sign through or take his player option through 2024. So sticking with the Rangers for a year and a half. So not a pure rental. Pretty big move. The Rangers obviously lost to DeGrom, and they added Max Scherzer and added Jordan Montgomery today. So suddenly got a pitching staff out there in Texas.
Yeah, and they kind of had to, though. I kind of viewed this as one of those, like, yes, it was a big ad, and it could pay huge dividends. But I mean, they lost DeGrom, obviously, but they also lost Nate Eovaldi.
Yeah.
I don't know, and it's a forearm strain. They're saying it's a minimum length IL stay, but I don't know. You tell me. I mean, how many times is that really the case? I mean, I'm going to be very suspicious with that.
So rare. There's a quote that was like, his pain was in a good place. I'm like, I don't know if anything in your pitching arm is ever in a good place. So yeah, I mean, there are a few instances where like the forearm is actually tight and it works out, but man, that's the most part. I expect him to be out for a while, and they've hung in there. The Astros are getting really healthy. They've got Altuve back. They got Yordan Alvarez back. Mm-hmm. The Rangers are still, easily the best offense in baseball. They actually still have more runs than the Braves do, which people are surprised by. The Braves seem like they mash every day, but the Rangers have 609 runs scored, giving up about the same number of runs as the Astros, but they're only game up. You could feel like the Astros are coming. The Rangers needed to do something.
Yeah, well, absolutely. I mean, just look at that rotation. Eovaldi's hurt. John Gray struggled against the Astros in his last time out. If you look at John Gray over the last over the last 60 days, 462, 136. That's not good.
No.
Martin Perez has not been good this year. Andrew Heaney's been up and down. 462, 135. Dane Dunning had a nice run, but he's kind of coming back to the fold a little bit himself. Over the last 60 days, 436, 133. Over the last 30 days, it's 506, 146. They needed help badly. The question is Scherzer going to be just an improvement, or is he going to be Mad Max again? Because he hasn't been super dominant. He's been good. 401, 119. I mean, that's still better than what they're getting from other people. But over the last 60 days, again, 430, 122. What version of Mad Max are you getting here? And just keep in mind, Mad Max is old, and nothing wrong with that. I'm old, but I'm not expected to do great. But he himself was getting super frustrated, both with his performance and with the team and the Mets. So I think that's why he waived the no trade. It's why he eagerly went to a new team and picked up the player option and all that good stuff.
It's pretty jarring just how fast this happened to the Mets. I mean, we were talking about they spent all the money. Will it work? I don't think we ever thought will it work was, are they going to win the division? Are they going to challenge the Braves? Not, are they going to be sellers at the trade deadline in 4 months? It's a wild. I mean, I just saw an interview with Verlander. He pitched tonight, and he's like, well, I'd like to win a championship here. I have a full no trade clause. And, if we're committed to winning next year, I'd like to stay. But, if we're not committed to winning, we traded Max, I'm open to something. So it seems like, if they're going to trade Scherzer, they might as well trade Verlander too. I can't believe how much money the Mets gave the Rangers in this deal. They paid like $35 million for them to take Scherzer.
It was they paid $35 million so they could get a real prospect.
There's that too. But like
Luis Angel Acuna. I mean, it was, and that's be prepared. And when there's that much money involved, be prepared to be underwhelmed by the prospect haul unless they give up a lot of money too. Yeah. And that's the whole thing. I mean, you either get rid of the contract or you get a real prospect. I mean, I think that's the calculus here.
But it didn't feel like one of those NBA contracts where the guy, is making $30 million is not good anymore. I mean, still Scherzer. I know he's not been the same. Still been good. Like you said, numbers are down. You look at everything, strikeout rates down, walk rates up, swing strike rates up. I get a feeling that he'll get pretty ramped up by this trade. I think that getting Scherzer in a pennant race is probably a good thing. How do you feel about the Jordan Montgomery ad in terms of Max was obviously the bigger name, but Montgomery is obviously their second best pitcher, or second or third best pitcher kind of right away.
Yeah, I think it speaks to the issues we were talking about with the other starters that, you got Eovaldi out. You've got both Perez and Dunning struggling lately, and Heaney just being mediocre all year. I mean, you need improvements wherever you can find it. The gap between NL pitchers and AL pitchers isn't really the same anymore because of interleague play, and the DH, universal DH and all that, and now a balanced schedule too. On top of that, it's drawing everything towards the middle. So it shouldn't be a stark difference in leagues. You could talk about ballparks if they're extreme, and I don't know if Texas is an extreme. I know it was early. I mean, but was that necessarily a ballpark induced, or is that just the way it's played? And just the way that the Rangers have hit. So that's the other thing. But Montgomery's another slightly above average arm, and that right now is big. And the Rangers, like you said, they're holding off the Astros right now. And if they don't have the division, all of a sudden, playoffs now are in question.
Yep.
This is a team that had highest run differential for a long time, and I think still does have the Braves have a slightly better one now.
Yeah. They still have the best one in the AL.
Yeah. So they're 60 and 46. That only puts them like a game and a half up in the wild card if they fall behind, the Astros. So, and the Red Sox are coming. Although actually they struggled this weekend against the Giants, but the Angels are going for it clearly.
Yep.
We'll see. I mean, I have a list of teams that haven't made a trade yet. We'll get into that in a second. There are some that I'm waiting to see if they're going to go for it. But including their division mate, I will mention the Astros have done nothing so far. They're a prime. Our injured guy coming back is our trade deadline acquisition.
Kendall Graveman was only small ad.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. I forgot about Graveman. You're right.
But fairly not one that's going to decide the division by any means. But a nice bullpen piece. But you're right. I think it's the Altuve and Yordan comeback. That's kind of our trade deadline. It'd be interesting to see if they. I mean, you talk about a place for Verlander, slides right in there. He's been there and comfortable, and that would work pretty well.
Yeah.
You just muted out there for a second.
Sorry about that. Kind of a weird dynamic when he.
Are you back? I cannot hear you.
It's kind of a weird dynamic when he just left them.
It is a weird dynamic, and it's maybe it'd be interesting. I would assume Dodgers is the key place because they need starting pitching. They traded for Lance Lynn. We can talk about that too, but that's a place that LA has tried so many of these rookies that haven't. None of them have really worked. Bobby Miller's probably worked the best, but Michael Grove got smoked by our Reds today, and if the Dodgers are going to win a World Series, they need a starting pitcher.
Yeah, they do. Well, let's talk Dodgers next because they've made some moves. They have made some moves already, but is it enough is the question. And obviously, they've had some pretty bad, key players, not necessarily bad injuries, but key players missing time now. Will Smith, Mookie Betts, and JD Martinez today.
Yep. And I think the JD one's going to be problematic. He's getting an MRI tomorrow. I think he's going the IL. It sounds like Mookie's fine. It's like a tweaked ankle. And it sounds like Will Smith was more of a function. He got hit by a pitch and more of a function of the game being a blowout. But I think, JD was in the lineup and then he was essentially, I would say, get scratched, but the game had already started. So he was actually out of the lineup. But yeah, he's going for an MRI on that hamstring. It's the second time it's come around. I'm pretty sure he's going the IL tomorrow. Yeah,
I think so too. And that they've already made tactical moves to add more righties. They went out and they got Kike Hernandez. They went out and they got Ahmad Rosario. And I think those were very important acquisitions. They were so left-handed with the outfield and they were so lacking up the middle. I can see why they did it, but they need the pitching. I mean, I know they got Lance Lynn and that was a good one.
Do you think they fixed Lance Lynn pretty quick?
I think I do.
I do too.
I really do. But they can't fix Tony Gonsolin right now. Tony Gonsolin, do you want to take a look at a guy who's really struggling? Last 60 days, 6.13 ERA, Scott.
It's weird. The guy's never been over a 3.3 ERA in any year of his career. Like, he's just one of those guys that doesn't make a lot of sense, doesn't make a lot of sense. It's always there. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, here we are. I mean, his FIP is 4.82 right now. So it's not like he's been, lucky or unlucky by any means. BABIP's only 221. I know he usually has a low BABIP. That's actually his career, but he goes out there. The strikeout rate was never huge. And now it's way down. It's under 20%. Walk rate's up. It's the swing and strike rate you look at is down from 12.5% to 9%. He's not the same guy he was the last couple of years. Jeff's got some tech stuff going on, I think. Anyway, as he gets that worked out, we'll talk about a few more trades. We talked about Scherzer. We talked about Jordan Montgomery. Jordan Hicks, talking about St. Louis, traded to Toronto. Jordan Romano went on the IL today. So they traded for Hicks. Likely will close for them for a couple weeks. Probably a signal that they're maybe a little more worried about Romano than we would hope they would be. Obviously, he got hurt in the All-Star game. Came back, didn't have to go in the IL, was fine, and then it came back up. Second time it comes around is never a really good thing. It's they got Jordan to Jordan there in the 8th, 9th inning. Good call there by Sarah Sanchez in the chat. Hicks has been good for the Cardinals as he's been closing. Too many walks, which is always a problem with him when you throw that hard. It's just finding that control. But got to think that all the Yimi Garcia and Eric Swanson bids went by the wayside this morning.
Yeah, they did, and we dialed ours down as a matter of fact because of that. I will say that, and the thing is, like, people who FAAB Jordan Hicks were probably like, oh, I'm going to lose him just after I got the job. Yep. And now he lands where at least temporarily he's got the job, and it might, who knows, with back injuries that could last a long time there too. I did not trade for Jordan Hicks in one league that I was trying to go in a go for it situation because I thought he'd get dealt. And, usually when a closer gets dealt, it's not to be a closer elsewhere because the teams that are acquiring usually have a closer.
Yep.
That, like, for instance, like Kendall Graveman, he's never going to close for Houston unless there's like Presley's down that day or something like that. But that's the normal tracking. Like, I'm dreading David Bednar getting dealt for that reason.
Yeah, he's one guy that if he ended up in some right places, he could close. He's that good, but you're right. I mean, there's teams we could go to where he'd be the setup guy too, and that'd be tough.
Clearly, Josh Hader, if he gets dealt, he's going to close. I don't think he gets dealt now. I thought he was going to, but I think the Padres are going to hang on to their players.
Talk about a huge sweep, right? They play the Rangers, and like, are they going to be sellers? Blake Snell and Josh Hader are both free agents. There was even talk on Thursday about like Juan Soto being on the market. We talked about he's only signed for another year after this. Yep. They sweep the Rangers. Now they're like four to 5 games out of the wild card. I think if anything, they may add somebody. I don't think they're going to sell even the free agents. I think they go for it right now.
They're kind of like on the Cubs' coattails in terms of getting hot exactly at the right time. And we'll see if it's the right time. Maybe it distracts.
It could be the worst thing that happens to them too. I mean, if they don't make the playoffs and they get nothing for Snell and Hader, that's a whole different story too. But you mentioned closers going from team to team. David Robertson got traded to the Marlins. Looks like he's going to close. There was a quote, a tweet from Craig Mish that he's pretty much going to close 90% of the games. Craig is really tied in with the Marlins, so I kind of assume that's going to be about right. I actually dropped AJ Puck in the league. He's been bad. He lost the job before they traded for Robertson. I don't think he sees many save offs the rest of the way.
I think you're probably right. Although it's funny, like he's got like 17 saves.
Yeah, it has worked. The ERA's been high, but if you took him in the 20th round, you got the 17 saves. It's worked. But I think it's pretty clear that he's not really locked in right now. ERA's over 5 after today, which is pretty crazy how well he started. Now the ERA's over 5, and I think he's behind Robertson for sure, and I think he's probably behind Tanner Scott right now too.
Yeah. Well, and let's point out that the Marlins were buyers and the Mets were sellers.
Wild.
And I'll say this, credit to the Mets for being willing to trade in division, because if that's the best deal they could get for Robertson, they did. And, there's some divergence on opinion on what the Mets got, but come on, it's a 38-year-old closer. Pitching is great this year, but what did you really expect? They got a top 10 Marlins prospect and probably a top 21.
Yeah, no, I think they did pretty well in that. And they struck early too, which I liked. I think if you got teams at the end, they're like, oh, I've got 3 or 4 relievers on the line to different teams. Like I think you strike early, you sometimes can get a better deal out of that.
Yeah.
Last deal I want to talk to you about that happened about an hour before the FAAB deadline. Just for people that's 6:00 Pacific. The Angels traded a couple of prospects for CJ Cron and Randall Grichuk to Colorado. It's funny because I needed some corners in some leagues. I actually had Mike Moustakas and Eduardo Escobar on some bids, and I was like, getting rid of those. Like those guys clearly were the ones that lose playing time with CJ and Randall Grichuk coming there. And then on the flip side, I looked at Colorado and Mike Toglia. I moved up. I mean, someone that was starting to get some at bats. So I think he started 6 of 7 games, and now 2 guys that were kind of fighting for at bats are out of the mix. So I think that all these trades, it's not who it impacts the team that gets a guy, but also the team that loses someone. There's some opportunity there. So that was one that was weirdly enough altered like 3 or 4 of my bids in 1 second.
Yeah, Sarah Sanchez. I'm just impressed that the Rockies made a real deal. Yeah. That's true. Me too.
Somewhere Trevor Story is shaking his head at that one.
Yeah, something signed Daniel Bard to an extension instead of trading him.
That's right.
They decided to take a break from eating paste in the corner, so good for them on that. But the thing is, with Ward out, the Angels acted quickly.
Yep.
And Grichuk's going to play a lot for this team. Cron's going to play a lot. Obviously, they gave up on Jared Walsh. They were using Trey Cabbage because Deuce Tomato was unavailable, but they were using Trey Cabbage at first base.
You've been waiting to drop that one.
Oh, so much. Yes. I like what they did. And again, if you're going to go all in for Ohtani, go all in for Ohtani. I you know what? Kudos to them for that. I mean, it's weird that I have to.
Oh, I think Jeff just froze again over there. But yeah, we're talking
I'm
about.
Good.
Oh, you're not there. Oh,
I'm not freezing.
You're frozen. You were frozen on my screen. That's weird. Maybe I was frozen. One of the two. Yeah. But it's crazy.
Just let it go.
You think about it. That was terrible. Grichuk and Cron probably hit like 4th and 5th for this team right now. Like these are ads that like in the middle of the lineup, boom, boom, boom. Like these are guys that are going to play every day and be their middle of the lineup right away.
Yeah, I think that's right. Well, and just look at this past weekend against Toronto. What was the quote from Matt Chapman on Friday? Like, why are we pitching this guy? There's nobody else that can hurt us. And he was right. Yeah. It's true.
It's not like the people were freaking out, but it's not like he like stood at the press conference and said that. Like he was talking to his manager and he was upset in the moment because Ohtani just went yard. I kind of thought that was a little overblown. Like I get the camera that happened to be in the wrong time, but if he like jumps to in the press conference and goes to the microphones and says that in like a post game press conference, I think that's one thing. Like saying to his manager, I don't know. I thought people.
I had no problem with it.
Yeah,
I just thought it was noteworthy.
Yeah, it definitely was, and they. I mean, the Angels knew that too. I mean. Everybody's like, oh, it's the first inning. You got to pitch Ohtani. Well, yeah, Mickey Moniak's hitting behind him, and then Moustakas and Matt Thaiss. Like, it's just, I get it. And Ohtani had hit, I think, home runs in 3 straight at bats. So there was just, I'm sure there was a frustration. Like, why are we letting this dude score runs on us when there's no Mike Trout there?
Right, exactly. We're still waiting. Yeah, and that's now it's like Trout Watch is going to take on a different meeting, though, right? We're going to be watching this one a lot closer to see when he comes back.
Yeah, I mean he's got the brace off, but you got to think he's probably pretty excited. I assume that he's going to be ramping up. Yeah. CJ Cron, career OPS at Coors 976, career OPS overall 794.
Yeah, it hurts Cron for sure.
Yeah.
As Paul
hat tip to Rob Silver on that stat right there. He's the one who sent that to me.
Paul Spohr in the chat area does bring up a good point. They do lose the Coors hangover effect. So you don't deal with like that leaving Coors Field and all that. And then remember, the Angels have already been there too. As we remember, they scored like 3,000 runs in one game and still lost a series. So they've been to Coors already. So he won't have a Coors hangover effect the rest of the year after he gets back. And Anaheim is a pretty good place to hit.
I was going to say, you look at park factor, you look at just home runs. I know we're not talking overall scoring. Home runs, Angel Park Stadium, what do they call it now? Is Angel Stadium still? Fourth best park for home runs so far in 2023, ahead of Coors Field, actually.
Ever since they lowered the line in right field, it's really boosted power there for left-handed hitters. But righties still have that short porch right down the line, too.
Yeah, so it's a nice. I mean, obviously, Coors is still a better overall park factor, for scoring runs. But I was surprised that Angel Stadium was top 5 when the trade happened. I quickly looked at that real quick, and I was like, "Oh, it's a good place. Better." It's like right above, ahead of Chicago, ahead of Atlanta. I was surprised it was ahead of both those places.
Yeah,
great American ballpark, still number 1.
Yeah, for sure. Hey, before we move on to the Week 19 preview, I want to talk real quick about the teams that have not traded yet.
Let's do it.
Tampa Bay.
Good one.
Desperately needing starting pitching. What's going on here?
They're such a weird team, right? Because they just they're not going to take on you just don't think they're taking on a huge contract. They could, but they feel like they're not going to. But man, they need pitching. I mean, Taj Bradley got smoked this weekend. Zach Eflin is a little banged up. So they got McClanahan Glass now, and like you're just praying the rest of the day.
And I think McClanahan doesn't have a win since June or something like that too. He had a trip to the IL, and he keeps on falling short of getting wins. It's not really a drop off in performance, but it's just like ever since they lost Rasmussen, there's been no excuse not to go get another pitcher. You knew they're going to need one at some point in time. Why not act early?
Did you know that Erasmo Ramirez is on this team?
Erasmo.
I looked and I'm like, that can't be the same guy. And I clicked on it. He's like 33. I'm like, it's the same dude. That's incredible that Erasmo Ramirez is pitching for them. Bulk innings today. Zach Littell started and pitched well, but man, we talked about the Dodgers needing an arm. Tampa Bay needs an arm more than the Dodgers do.
Yeah, and Tampa Bay it's almost like they're like high on their own supply and their ability to turn people around because it's worked so many times. But often that takes a while to happen, and it's not just like, okay, we got Robert Stevenson, we have Zach Littell, let's turn them into things, and it might work. It might work if it weren't for those meddling kids, but they still need innings. I still think they're.
And it may work in the middle of July, but it doesn't work in game 2 of the ALDS either.
I don't think so either. Yeah. Another team that hasn't done anything yet, Cincinnati, our Reds. They've called up all the prospects that they're going to call up in the short term. I mean, I think that Marte's not coming up this year. I don't think the pitcher they just pushed up to AAA is coming up this year. And I'm tired. Bear with me. I forget his name at the moment. But
how much does the India injury impact what they do? Because they were talking about him being the guy they were going to trade.
Right. Yeah. I think it does impact a lot, and that hurts their ability to trade there. And by the way, just for completion's sake, the pitcher in question that I thought was going to get maybe called up at some point in time was Connor Phillips, who is now in AAA. But that's we're slowing that train down a little bit there. But they still have like 4 top 100 prospects in James Anderson's list and 17 in his top 400. So that's still pretty good, despite the guys that they've already promoted. But they need innings. Luke Weaver, upset of all upsets, was
Yeah.
fine. And actually, Joel Luckup, if you follow him on Twitter, he's like the Reds TV broadcast statistician. He tweets out some good facts from time to time. Since the break, the Reds have 10 quality starts. They have a 280. Their starting rotation has a 286 ERA. So they've actually been pitching pretty well. But
Ashcraft shut out the Dodgers today, right?
Yeah. The world of Ashcraft, I guess. But I just can't count on it. And Lodolo's not coming back to September now. We know this.
Yeah, it got pushed up a little bit, but I still think it's going to be last week, August, early September. It's going to be right in there.
Next team go ahead.
They need pitching for the next month. They need to find a way to stay in contention, and waiting for Lodolo and Green only works so much. They're going to need somebody to pitch the next month.
I agree. And, a lot of the options are getting pulled off the table too. So another team that hasn't made a deal yet, the Baltimore Orioles, another team that could probably use a starter, right?
Another team that has uber prospects.
Yes. And especially now it looks like Stroman's off the market. There's just a lack of arms out there that are very good. The White Sox have made their trades unless they trade Cease.
Yep.
Montgomery is already gone. Maybe Flaherty goes still. That's one that we can still look for. But I mean, we're starting to run out of supply. And that unless Verlander does something, we'll see about that. But
I'm thinking like Eduardo Rodriguez, Michael Lorenzen names in there might be the way to go. But you're right. They need Dean Kramer. Dean Kramer actually pitched pretty well. He looked Dean Kramer looked horrible today. He had an 8-0 lead and couldn't get through 5, and he just looked lost. There was an at bat. I just as like an old baseball fan, like Kyle Higashioka was up, bases loaded. Kramer had just walked 2 guys. You're down 7-0. He goes 3-1 to Higashioka with 2 outs, and he swings 3-1 and grounds a shortstop.
I was listening on the radio on the drive back, and
as the 9 hitter, the guy has no idea where the ball is going. You cannot swing there. That was horrible. It just bailed him out so much. The game was kind of over at that point.
Yep, it was. The Cubs. We don't think they're going to sell, but why don't they buy? I think we should flip that conversation. If you're not going to sell, you should probably buy. Don't hang out in the middle.
They were done, and they won 8 in a row, and what was it, 9 of 11? They lost today, but yeah, they're 3.5 out. And the funny thing about being 3.5 in the National League is you look at the teams above you, you're like, I'm not scared of Arizona. I'm not scared of Miami. Are you scared of the Giants, the Brewers? Not really. Like, it's just
scared of our Reds. Probably not.
Like, it's just, you're not looking at in the AL. You're like, you look up and it's like Tampa and Toronto and Houston and Boston and New York. And you're like, this gets a lot tougher. The National League is wide open in the wild card side.
Yeah, and the Marlins are buyers, but they're sinking still. Uri Perez at some point is going to come back. We're here, but they botched that situation so bad.
Apparently he's coming back though. Did you hold him?
Yeah, I held him, and mostly because it's so damn hard to find something to pick up. But I held him. Okay, couple more teams.
Chat, real quick, we're talking. Sorry, but someone in the chat mentioned JP Sears. I just don't know. I don't think the A's have any impetus to trade him. I know he's 27, but he's under team control for like 4 more years. Like, I guess
last year.
Yeah, if they really like, someone wants to blow them away, but I don't think they're going to give him up for nothing. Just because he's pitched well. I know he's 27. Not talking about a huge prospect, but they've got him really cheaply for the next 4 years, which is kind of all they want.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, 2 more teams. Boston. They've traded away Kike Hernandez, but that was really almost like we're gonna lose him on a roster spot when Story comes back anyhow, sort of thing. They haven't done anything, and their division mate, the Yankees. What the heck are the Yankees going to do? They're not that far out in the wild card. They are last place in the AL East, though. They're not playing good ball. They're kind of middling right now. If they were in the National League, they'd be buyers. In the AL East, who knows? They're just. Both these teams haven't done anything yet. I'm kind of curious to see what they do.
And the Yankees are weird because we talked, all these teams are like, they need to add a pitcher, they need a pitcher. The Yankees need offense. Like, as Oswald Peraza and Oswaldo Cabrera have not worked out in college, but they have not done anything. The lineup they run out there every week, every game, and even we put Judge in there, like, you still look at the bottom half of that lineup and you're not scared of any part of it. Like, I think they need They need a big bat. You need a left-handed bat. You can look at their lineup, and just like you see very few lefties. Jake Bauers hit a home run today, and he looked good tonight. But their normal lineup is 8 righties and 1 lefty. Paul Sporer mentioned Seth Brown in the chat. That'd be a really perfect ad, actually. I think he'd be really good there. But
he's another guy that won't run for him. I know he's got a little bit of speed, but he'll fit perfectly in that team dynamic.
He really will. But they need a lefty. They need someone who hits them. I mean, their lineup's bad. Their offense. So every time you look at it, you're like, oh, it's at the Kiner, Falefa, Bader, Volpe, Higashioka part of the lineup. You're like, oh, when are Judge and Stanton up again? It's rough.
Exactly. Sarah Sanchez on the Cubs says, I honestly just want to see what happens when Jed buys. Like, no one really knows. He's never done it. Because there was Theo that did the trades for Chapman and all that, which, by the way, weren't really good trades. I mean, it got them what they needed. I mean, Gleyber Torres for Chapman. I mean, is that something you want to relitigate? Let alone Jose Quintana for Eloy. I mean,
oh, that's right.
Yeah, I respected the trades at the time. And it doesn't always work out. You want to see go for trades, but those weren't Jed.
By the way, Seth Brown has 11 stolen bases last year. Offended you said he can't run.
Yeah, I know. As soon as I said that, I'm like, oh, I'm kind of wrong about this one here. I just think of him as not fast.
That was a career high. I don't actually think he's fast. I think he's crafty when he decides to go. He was a smart base runner, but
kind of like you,
right? No, I'm not fast enough to be a smart base runner.
Yeah.
Let's jump into week 19, obviously from a fantasy standpoint. But first, a note from our partners at AG1. AG1 is the daily foundational nutritional supplement that supports whole body health. I drink it literally every day. I gave AG1 a try because I wanted better gut health, a boost in energy, immune system support, and also I absolutely hate taking pills. That is very, very true. I want a supplement that actually tastes really good too, which AG1 does. I drink AG1 in the morning before I start long days. It makes me feel ready to take on my day, and I'm also doing something good for my body. Since drinking AG1, I've noticed an overall feeling of health plus sustained energy, improved digestion, most importantly, support for mental clarity and focus, which we covered before. I desperately need. Covering my nutritional basis for my day couldn't be any easier, which is why I trust AG1. I just mix 1 small scoop with water and drink it first thing each morning, and I'm done. It has 75 vitamins, minerals, and whole food sourced ingredients. I also think it costs about $3 a day. That's pretty darn good if you ask me. It's really effective daily habit with highly quality sourced ingredients. It's really a win-win for everybody involved. If a comprehensive solution is what you need from your supplement routine, then try AG1. Get a free 1-year supply of vitamin D and 5 free AG1 travel packs with your first purchase. Go to drinkag1.com/roto. That's drinkag1.com/roto. Check it out. So, Jeff, I want to get a FAAB, but real quick, we'll jump into week 19 real quick. A lot of games this week. It's going to be we got the trade done. We also got a lot of games. We have, 11 teams with 7 games this week. The D-backs, the Reds, the Cubs, the Brewers, and the Marlins in the NL. Mariners, Angels, Astros, Jays, Orioles, and Yankees in the AL. Only 2 teams with 5 games. I think we had 6 of those this week. The Tigers and the A's. The A's again with 5 games. They have a lot of off days. The Tigers and A's with 5 days, but there are a lot of really good schedules, especially in the NL and the NL Central. The Brewers jumped out to me as the best. They have 3 at Washington, 4 at home against Pittsburgh. Tough to draw it up much better than that for Milwaukee.
Yeah, that's right. And they need it after having to face the Braves this weekend. Now they don't have to deal with them anymore. Unfortunately for the Brewers, they don't get to face our Reds anymore. I'm so glad I don't have to see Christian Yelich's mug anymore against my team.
Man, he mashes against them.
So good schedule for the Brew Crew. Interesting, like the names that are kind of like Freilich was batting, I think, cleanup today. Adames is now down to 5th. Looking at their lineups every day, it's a little different every day, and it's just but some of these guys, it could be profitable still.
Yeah, and they traded for Carlos Santana. We didn't mention that. It was happened earlier last week. I'm sure you guys had that podcast, but I mean, a good sign that Rowdy Tellez is probably just not coming back, or if he does, not going to play very often. He was really bad anyway. But Santana had a home run today off AJ Smith-Shawver in Atlanta. They were actually beating the Braves for a bit, and then the Braves came back as they tend to do and scored 8 runs. But Yelich has been fun. And I know we talked about joking with the Reds, but I mean, it's so good to see Yelich good again, hitting 286, 16 home runs, has over 20 steals. It's been fun to see him bounce back. There's a guy that it's fun when he's good. I know that
for sure.
As a Reds fan, we can't say that, but in general, it's good. Good when Christian Yelich is good. But speaking of our Reds, really good schedule too. They are 4 at the Cubs and 3 home against the Nationals. Should be a lot of runs for a Cubs lineup or for a Reds lineup. I want to ask you, Christian Encarnacion Strand has come out of the gate really slow. Do you think he's a hold? Do you what do you do with CES here?
Hold.
Right.
Yeah, I think I would hold on to him.
I didn't watch Game of Thrones, and I still got that one.
Yeah. I, he is going to lose a little. He has lost a little playing time, but now that India is out,
Yeah,
I think that's one less, link, in the chain, and I still think that there's going to be some ups and downs, and let's face it, he faced. How many times have the Reds faced Corbin Burns since he's gotten the call? I mean, how many times has he faced Freddie Peralta? I'm not that concerned. I think this is just a normal adjustment. I think the hit tool is still there with the Encarnacion Strand. Let's face it, he has 35 plate appearances, guys, going into today.
He's not striking out either. He's like 20%. It's not like he's striking out 40% of the time like we see some of these guys.
He's not squaring it up yet. I think these things I think we got to give him a little bit more time.
Yeah, I do too.
I don't even think like the metrics matter right now, what his exit velo is. Because it's 35 plate appearances.
Yeah. I mean, his hard hit rate's 46%. So I don't think that's a problem anyway. I don't think it matters at 46%, but it's not like it's 20% either. So I think that I think it'll work. I actually think that the India thing is actually, I hate to see it for the Reds. I hate to see it because I have Jonathan India in the main event, but I think that helps him a lot. I think he's going to get more consistent playing time. I think that you take one piece out of that, one chain out of there, one link out of the chain, as you said. Maybe Senzel plays a little bit more too, but I think you get a lot of CES playing a lot too.
Yeah.
Cubs, we talked about the NL Central. They have a good schedule this week. They have 7 home games, 4 against the Reds, 3 against the Braves, and they miss Spencer Strider in those Braves games, which is really nice. So that's
massive.
Huge. Padres start the week with 3 at Coors. That's a big one right there. Obviously, Coors is great, and then none of the Rockies pitchers really worry you. So that's a good start to the Padres. Ha-Sung Kim hurt his shoulder today, sliding into home. I thought it was way worse than it was. It actually turns out to be day-to-day jammed shoulder. I thought he separated it. I was really worried that it was going to be a long-term injury, but really good news there. It sounds like he's not going to play tomorrow, so it makes him a little bit tough to play this week. But if you
quietly having a good year.
He's having a really good year. He's just kind of all around too. He's just doing. If you picked him where he went in the draft, he's been a godsend for teams. Play multiple spots and home runs and steals, hitting lead off a bunch for the Padres has been really nice. But they have 3 and then an off day on Thursday, so he doesn't play tomorrow. He'd probably have to get a note that said like, oh, he's not playing today, but he's gonna be in the lineup tomorrow to play him because 2 of Coors is still be pretty good. But if you don't know it's gonna be 2, he's tough to use this week.
Exactly. I just want to point out, just from a baseball standpoint, 2 huge series in the NL, Reds, Cubs, and Phillies, Marlins, could be elimination series. They go 2-2, whatever. But, if one team sweeps the other, then all of a sudden, you can pretty much knock some teams off the list.
Yeah, Reds Cubs will be fun. That's at Wrigley.
Yep.
Abbott, Lively, Williamson, and Weaver against Stroman, Steele, Smiley, and Tyon. That's going to be a fun series right there.
Yeah, it should be. It should be very fun.
To the guy in the chat saying he wishes Yahoo would let him cut Trey Turner, don't cut Trey Turner.
Yeah.
Please just keep him. Let's jump into FAAB, and I actually want to start with relievers, which we never do, but I felt like this is the spot where not only did some spots open up for relievers, but we're trying to speculate on who might get traded. Gregory Santos, we kind of mentioned him last week. I had him in passing though, as names that could end up closing. But Kendall Graveman got traded to the Astros. Liam Hendricks is not back yet. He's just starting to throw, and I think that White Sox are out of it. You can't imagine they push him very much. But Santos has been good. 2.63 ERA, 5% walk rate's really good to see after he struggled with walks last year in AAA with the Giants. But Santos has been good. Came in for the first save since Graveman got traded. Converted the save. 13.9% strikeout rate. Santos is probably the top target among all these kind of speculative relievers I saw.
Yeah, I think so. He was definitely like ours. Shu and I were talking about it. That's the guy we wanted to prioritize. Wasn't available in every league because some people did the spec.
Yep.
We did get Santos in one of our online mains, so that was nice. Won him 19-13.
Oh, 19 is cheap. That's a nice price.
Yeah, and another league he went for 37 as a kind of a point of reference, so it can kind of show you how it changes a little bit there. But yeah, we decided to prioritize him over the Mets options, which I know we're going to talk about here, and any others. Although I think if Giovanni Gallegos was available in more leagues, I would have been a little bit more aggressive on him.
Yeah, he was mostly available on 12 teamers. I think he was like 92 or 93% rostered in the main event. But
yeah,
Paul Spohr in the chat noted we talked about it a bunch too. The reliever market's been awful. Usually there's always like someone got hurt, someone got traded, and here's the next guy. And we don't have to make situations where there is a next guy up. There's like someone gets hurt, there's like 3 guys up. Like with Toronto, before they traded for Hicks, it was like Garcia and Swanson. Just a lot of names. It's hard to like find that.
So you get 3 saves.
Yeah.
And you get 2 here or 3 there.
And you get 3 saves over 3 weeks too. It's not like you get 3 saves in a week. It's just it's tough to find. Santos is really interesting to me.
Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry, you go.
I was just gonna say the better FAABs have been the ones that like long-term specs that have worked out, like Alzolay, for instance. You know,
4 saves this week. By the way, that Talkman catch to save one of his games was awesome.
Yeah, it was.
You rarely get that like with a guy on base too, so it's like you either win or lose on this play, and it was beautiful. That was an awesome play. So what about the Mets? We mentioned David Robertson moved in a trade to the Marlins. Brooke Raley got 2 saves, I believe, over the weekend. Ottavino's in the mix too. He might get traded too. They may trade Raley. Who knows what happens there? What did you do in this situation? Because I like what I saw from Brooks Raley.
I did too.
He's looked really good. 2.43 ERA, walks a few too many guys, but the strikeout rate's pretty good at 25%. Does not have much of a split, which you like to see. He's a lefty, so you hate to see that. You're always like, oh, how he's against righties. Seems like he does pretty well against both. I prioritize him over Ottavino myself.
Agreed. Although I thought it was pretty close, and like as you alluded, he might be pitching for someone else tomorrow. And I don't think he closes.
Ottavino, right? Like, why would
so does Raley could be dealt too, though. Yeah. That's the thing. But yeah, they should try at the very least. The funny thing though is like, if like it does amount to be like it is Raley, not Israeli, but if it is Raley,
I got
you. They're not tearing down to the studs here. This is a team that sold off Scherzer. Yes, they might sell off Verlander still. And yet they'll still have a bunch of veterans on this team. They won't be a terrible team. They'll be a really bad team.
They're both 35 or older. Ottavino's 37. It's wild.
Raley being that old is the wild part to me.
Yeah, he pitched in Japan, right? Is that why we don't remember him that long? Yeah. So that's I like what I saw from Raley. He looked good, and he got the chance today. He had 3 strikeouts today and got the save, so that was nice. Guy we talked about a bunch last week, and I added him in 2 of my 3 main events, is Carlos Hernandez, who actually got a save this week too. But some speculation that they'll trade Scott Barlow. The Royals GM say no, we're not really working on much. Nothing's imminent, which was very strange. You think he'd be on the phone at all hours trying to move anybody at this point. But if Barlow gets traded, I think Carlos Hernandez slides right in and slides in pretty nicely.
Yeah, I think so too. For the 3 save chances that the Royals have the rest of the way.
Yeah, there are those details.
Yeah. We did pick up Trevor May at one point, and I think he's up to 10 saves. So yeah, it's kind of worked if you are good with getting a save every other week. But he has been the closer for the most part there. So that's that, but that's the thing is like I always used to avoid the Rockies for the same reason. Not, both the job share, the bad environment, and the fact they're a bad team.
Yeah, and the thing with Hernandez I like is he got a 14.7% swing strike rate. His whip's under 1. So like even if something doesn't happen, like he's a guy that I could use some weeks and play, which is really nice. Robert Suarez in San Diego looked a lot better about 5 days ago before the Padres swept the Rangers. Another guy who's a good pitcher who's backing up Hader and probably would slide right in that role if they traded Hader. But again, we talked about it earlier. I just don't think they trade Josh Hader.
Agreed. Yeah. Well, put it this way: if they don't trade, they're not. I mean, if they trade, they're going to trade Hader. If they don't trade, he's going to stay. I mean, it's pretty much very binary here because he's the most likely to be dealt if they do sell off. Yeah. But I don't think they will. You're
saying Hader or Suarez or both?
Hader will be because he's a free agent. Yeah. I mean, if you are going to sell, you have to sell him.
You have to Snell. If you're going to sell, you have to sell him and Snell because you may
sell Snell 3 times. Say that fast 3 times.
Yeah, I don't want to do that, but so I think Suarez is interesting, but less so than he was maybe a week ago. We talked about the Cardinals. They moved Jordan Hicks to the Jays. Giovanni Gallegos and Jojo Romero got the save today. They used Gallegos for 2 innings. He pitched the 7th, 8th, pitched well, and then Romero came in and got the save in the 9th. Of course they did. I think this will be pretty fluid. My bet would be Gallegos gets more save ops until Ryan Helsley comes back. We don't know when that's going to be, but it's probably it's maybe like a 65-35 kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. Of course he Gallegos through the 7th and 8th because
right.
Yeah, of course.
You mentioned Trevor May. The A's should absolutely trade Trevor May if anybody wants Trevor May. He does. You mentioned the 10 saves. Has pitched a little bit better lately, but he's 33. He's not someone you want to hold on to. I don't think anybody trade for him, but if they do, I think Lucas Urseg probably ends up closing games for the A's. But like you said with the Royals, like how many saves you getting? But if I was in a super deep league or an AL only league, I think Urseg would be the name I'd grab if I were looking for save speculation in Oakland.
Sure, sounds good to me.
Starting pitching is once again brutal. It's bad. I actually had Lance Lynn available in one of my main event leagues. I got outbid on him. He got dropped last week. I'm sure the person who dropped him was not really happy about him getting traded to the Dodgers of all places.
No.
But aside from that, it was tough out there. Luis Medina in Oakland is about 30% rostered, has pitched really well for like the last 3 or 4 starts. He even pitched pretty well today in Coors Field. He pitched, he only gave 2 runs, no walks, 6 strikeouts, but has pitched really well. The last 3 he's given up 2, 1, and 0 runs with 6 strikeouts in each of the last 3 starts. I thought he was interesting, and then I don't know, the list after that. I mean, Hyun-Jin Ryu is coming back on Tuesday for Toronto. Was not available in many NFBC leagues until he actually pitches. Your friend Johnny Cueto is back and pitching okay, which is always feels like that we're like going to get a one, an inning and a third, 9 earned runs at any point. Last year he had some good outings, but I always feel like the blow-up's coming. David Peterson probably back in the mix in New York now that Scherzer's gone. What the heck are you starting pitching? Because I week after week I'm having trouble finding anybody that I'm remotely wanting to pitch. I used Priester for the Pirates this week. He got 2 wins, but it was ugly. But they got 2 wins, so I guess I can't complain too much.
You got your money's worth.
I guess those ratios were ugly though.
Yeah, but you knew that going in.
I did not think I was picking up Justin Verlander. No, but
no.
What do you do with starting pitching right now? I mean, Noah Syndergaard pitches twice this week. Can I interest you in that?
Heck to the no.
Yeah.
I mean, good for you if it works out. I told you that I didn't want to bid on him, like not even $1.
Well, the first start's at Houston too.
Yeah.
Godspeed. But no, I couldn't do it either. I need strikeouts badly and he wins badly, but I just I couldn't do it. After doing the Quinn Priester experience and surviving with 2 wins, I was not going back to another super risk.
How about the Mets though? Peterson and Quintana. I mean, Quintana was really good last year, especially after the trade deadline. But can you really trust that? And how deep in games is he going to go? But he gets 2 starts this week. Maybe. I mean, league average pitching, which is what Quintana really is pretty valuable right now.
And one of those starts is at Kansas City. And if you survive that one, you're feeling good. Then you have to go play at Baltimore, which is not where you want to pitch. So, good park, tough lineup. But the park is obviously great. There was a stat, and I don't know if it's right. There's a stat on the Sunday Night Baseball game tonight. There were 591 balls hit since they put the new wall in there that would have been home runs in 29 other parks that weren't in Baltimore.
That many already?
That's what they said. I can't imagine that's right. That's the number.
In a year and a half?
Podcast. Yeah, that's what they said. There's no way that's right?
No.
Maybe there's 591 balls hit across all the majors that would have been out in 29 parks and not that park. Maybe that's what they were saying. I don't know. I couldn't figure it out. And then David Cohn was doing bong shots with the homer hose with the Orioles. So they moved on after that.
So I didn't hear the comment, but man, that doesn't make any sense. I mean,
well, that's good. I feel a lot better. Sarah Sanchez said she heard that quote too. There's no way that number's right just for Camden Yards fly balls in that one part of the park.
I mean, an all-time home run season for a team is like that.
Yeah.
Let alone balls that would have been out. No,
it must be number of fly balls hit in major leagues that were home runs in 29 parks, but not that one. I think I don't know. It's clearly the hardest place to hit a home run in left field.
That'll buy. And it's probably like there were 591 homers to left field across baseball that would not have been homers. It
must have been it.
I bet you that's it.
Fun piece of trivia though. Do you know the one lefty who's hit an opposite field home run there over that fence this year?
No.
James Outman, LA Dodgers.
Wow. You would have given me about 255 guesses, and I might not have gotten there.
They mentioned it, and then I was thinking like, oh, what lefty could have done that? I was like, oh, Joey Gallo. I was trying to get these names, and then there was James Outman. I was like, oh, wouldn't have thought that one. So.
Yeah.
Let's jump into hitters and FAAB before we jump out of here. But first, a note from our sponsor, Home Run Index. We know the weather can impact how far a ball can fly, but we never know what all the heat and humidity or cold air is really doing to the ball. The Home Run Forecast Index gives us an easy way to determine how good or bad the air is for ball flight. The index is calculated by measuring stadium-specific weather conditions and is displayed on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being the most unfavorable for good ball flight and 10 indicating the most favorable air. There's a strong correlation between the index and the number of runs scored per game and the number of home runs hit. Given that games have the highest index, 10 for the whole game, average over 10 runs and 2.8 homers over the course of a season. An index is created for each game so you can see what it will be like in any stadium and how the weather's influence might change over the course of the game, as well as all wind directions. Right now, you can get access to the HRF premium site for only $5 a month and see what the index will look like for every hour of every Major League Baseball game. Go to homerunforecast.com now to sign up. So, Jeff, this is kind of a rough hitter week, too. I think everybody's excited earlier in the week when Marco Luciano got called up in San Francisco. Probably not ready. Maybe not playing every day either. Striking out a bunch, striking out a lot in the minors too, which is always concerning when a guy strikes out 30% of the time in the minors. You're like, I just know that's jumping to 36% in the majors.
Yeah.
So I actually pulled back on him. I was going to bid on him a couple leagues, and then he actually didn't get picked up in 2 of my 3 main events. I don't know how he was in yours, but as I looked a little closer, I kind of felt like he's 21. I didn't think he was going to help in fantasy teams quite yet.
I think he's a better real life prospect than fantasy for this year. And I think those two sometimes get conflated, but I also think that, I think the bidders in our various leagues are getting sharper about that too.
I do too. I think it used to be like someone got called up, like there was always big bids no matter what. And I feel like, especially got called up earlier in the week too. I think people had a time to look. If he got pulled up like Saturday and played 1 game, maybe, but I think everybody kind of looked at how they're using him. I just think that, I pulled back everything. I don't need shortstops very much in most leagues too. I'm kind of covered there. But I was kind of less in, I got more in other players as I dove deeper in this week.
Yep. Agreed. So other player that I am more interested in is Matt Wallner.
Yeah. Alex Kirilloff going the IL helped this one
again
today too. Yeah. Again, sadly so. Not the wrist this time. It's actually the shoulder, but so frustrating.
Oh, good.
Wallner strikes out a lot, but he's got some pop.
Yeah, he does. He's a higher rated prospect than people realize because they've promoted so many other top prospects, I feel like. But yeah, he's a legit bat. Now, he's probably going to bet towards the bottom of the order. That's a negative. So it might hurt your counting stats some. But I think he's someone that could carve out some playing time. Now, again, with the Twins, when they call up a prospect, they don't always commit to him. And that's sometimes just frustrating.
It is. We've dealt with that with a number of their outfielders, especially. He did hit 5th twice this week and hit 4th once. So maybe, I think that maybe he gets some spots in there. There's talks they may trade Trevor Larnach or Max Kepler kind of to help that glut in the outfield. Although with Kirilloff going the IL, that's probably less likely than it was. Really good question in the chat. Real quick though, Buxton, Teoscar, and Tristan Casas need 2 of those 3. Jeff, I'm putting you on the spot. Who do you take there? That's a hard one.
Casas is as on fire as anybody in baseball right now.
He's one of my 2 for sure, by the way.
I think it's Teoscar over Buxton right now. I got to relitigate that. I've got Buxton and Teoscar on the worst ever live main event team ever. So, I'm probably not the right person to ask. I'm very salty about Buxton. Every once in a while he does something nice. I mean, he's at 17 and 9. I mean, that's not horrific. And then you look at the batting average. I'm sorry. 206 is just going to kill you in a fantasy league.
I'm taking Casas and Teoscar myself too, and I'm leaving Buxton, but I think it was a tough one. I think that Teoscar's striking out too much, but still hitting the ball really hard. I think that a hot streak is going to come at some point. There's talk of him getting traded too, so it'd be interesting if Seattle's a team kind of right on that edge too. They got so many teams in front of them, but they're not fully out of it.
Yeah,
I don't know what they do. It'll be interesting.
Yeah, I think one of the Seattle beat writers had a column about that, or at least I only kind of was hurrying, so I didn't really read through it. But like they haven't earned either being a seller or a buyer right now, so they're in limbo, and especially as you alluded to, the gauntlet that is the American League.
It is. It's tough. You look at that, and it's pretty nasty. Luis Rengifo, Joey Weimer, Alex Call. There's some other names I was looking at this week. I was kind of interested in Rengifo, and then I looked at his splits a little bit, and I saw who they play this week, and they face a lot of righties, and he's not very good against righties. So I feel like you probably missed Rengifo's best week this last week. But Mitch Garver in Texas, Jonah Heim went on the IL. Sounds like he's going to wait 2 or 3 weeks and then see if he needs to have surgery out for the year. But Garver suddenly, was kind of the guy that it was utility only, then got catcher, but wasn't playing enough. Garver suddenly is going to fall into a lot of playing time really quickly here.
Yeah, he is, and we added him in one league actually last week. We got really super lucky. Well,
spicy. I like it.
Well, it's not. Don't be too impressive. We just had to replace a catcher. I mean, so and okay, let's go Garver. Okay, fine. I mean, that's all that really was. But Garver's going to probably play for a while now too. I think this is more than a 15-dayer.
I do too. I'd be surprised if after those 2 or 3 weeks he's not like, I need to get this thing. The only thing is they're in the race, so maybe. And I think he was leading catchers in RBI. If it wasn't, he was really close. I have to look at the exact stat, but he was right around there. But you look at Garver, 46% hard hit rate, 13% barrel, strikes out too much. We're always going to get that, but I think you might get if you get 5, 6, 7 home runs from your catcher the rest of the way. That's an edge right there.
Yeah, same main event league that I got Santos, Gregory Santos. I also got Garver. So 17-13 on that one. So decent win.
Those are nice little ads for this point in the season. I do like both of those. Michael Toglia, we talked a little bit about. We're talking about the Rockies a little bit. I bumped him up once they traded Cron and Grichuk. I just think that Nate Jones, obviously he's been playing a lot as it was. He's had a really good year, but he's going to play. He's going to play a ton. But I think Toglia plays a lot too. He's played 6 of the last 7 games. It's just a guy who's playing every day at Coors Field. Like, I signed me up for that for a few bucks, no matter what. He had 16 home runs in AAA. I get that they play in a really good hitter's park, but they do for the regular games too. Doesn't strike out. Had lowered his strikeouts this year. Used to strike out a lot, but lowered that a little bit. Hits the ball pretty hard. I thought he was mildly interesting as a guy you could get for $3 or $4.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's about as much as I'd invest, though. I think I would cap it at that because he's going to murder, death, kill you on the road.
I'm hoping to not have to play him very much to the road, but I agree that he would have to kill you on the road. We talked about the Mets a bunch with trading guys and kind of selling off. Do you think that we get to a point where they play some of the young guys here? Do you think they call up Ronnie Mauricio? Do you think Mark Vientos is why I bring it up? He got called back up this week. Seems like he's only starting against lefties right now. It's been weird how they treat him. They called him up and he never played. He was playing like one every 3 or 4 games, and they called him back up now. At some point, they got to see what these guys can do, right?
Yeah, I think so. And I think they're not done selling. I think Tommy Pham will get dealt, for instance. I think they might straight up cut Vogelback at some point in time because I don't think they're going to get anything for him.
I loved Pham's quote, by the way, Drew. That he's like, "Oh, I know my value. I looked at my WRC plus last night.
Oh,
it was beautiful. Yeah, it was great. Yeah. Other than that, offense was tough. Like Oscar Gonzalez got backed up and called up in Cleveland. I think we were both fades on him in draft time, and I'm still a fade on him. He was as bad as we were worried he'd be, and I'm not really excited about that. We talked about Kike Hernandez getting traded to the Dodgers, but I think the playing time was weird there. He hasn't done much offensively either. I think that him going to LA is probably great for him, great for the team, great for the clubhouse and locker room, but I don't think it helps much in fantasy leagues. Alex Call in Washington, I think, is leading off a bunch for them, playing a lot. I think he's kind of a mildly interesting name, but I had trouble finding offense this week. Even guys that I was like, oh, they're good schedule this week. I had trouble finding offense this week.
Yeah. Do you take a gander at Gabriel Arias in Cleveland or Tyler Freeman and one of those two guys as you're trying to find something? And the answer is probably not. I was trying to think like who steps in with Ahmed Rosario gone there, and I'm just nonplussed.
I looked at Arias too, and I saw he had 240 last year with a decent amount of strikeouts. I was like, do I really want to do this?
Yeah.
He's got a little bit of pop, not much speed. Now, I was kind of looking for more from the opposite way for that. I'm looking for some speed and not much pop, but
yep.
I looked and I wasn't super interested when I looked.
Yeah, exactly.
Anybody else free agent wise that you guys were really interested in? Because I felt like it was this is a heavy reliever week this week.
Yeah, and for all the trades that we've seen so far, there's fewer resulting opportunities than I would have thought.
Yeah, me too. And the ones that did seem like they're all relief pitchers.
Yeah. So yeah, but more shoes will drop, I hope.
Do you think we get fully shocked by anybody?
Yeah, probably.
Do you think we get like an Arenado or no? We're not going to Juan Soto trade anymore, but someone that we don't expect. I know they said they're not trading Arenado, but do we get a? You think we get a really big, huge name that you don't expect?
There'll be a name that we weren't expecting. Yeah.
It's hard because there's not that many huge, big names on the teams that are fully selling, but maybe the A's will move Aledmus Diaz and Jace Peterson. That would really blow the doors off. The MLB network.
Yeah, it would be massive, earth shattering.
I think most of the news and notes we probably hit, but we talked about Romano, we talked about Jonathan India, Taylor Ward, we talked about get hit by the pitch by Alek Manoah. That was a scary one. He got moved to the 60-day IL this afternoon, so obviously he is done for the year, or at least until the last week of the season. So by all intents and purposes, you hope the Angels make the playoffs. Maybe he can come back, but he's out 60 days. Clearly a scary one there. You mentioned Nate Eovaldi, a forearm strain out for the Rangers. They made that trade. We mentioned Alex Kirilloff. Some good news. Max Fried made his last rehab start Saturday night. Max Fried will be pitching with the Braves this week, and if assuming everything goes well. He was sick last week for a while, but Fried Friday night against the Cubs off the IL. I assume you're starting him right away.
Yeah, I think so. I think if you have him and you've been holding him all this time, I think it'd be very hard pressed to find a way to not use him. So who misses out on this rotation? Because all of a sudden, again, the Braves have a lot of uncertainty in their rotation. For such a great team, it's Strider and Morton and Fried whenever he comes back. Elder has struggled lately. Yanni Chirinos is just came off of a team that's desperately needing starting pitching, and they didn't want him. That stuff. AJ Smith-Shawver came back, but he wasn't very good. He probably heads back to the minors when Fried comes back too. So it's still like this transition team. Like Bryce Elder was available in one of my mains, I think.
Yeah, that's the bloom was off that rose pretty quickly. He was really good for a while, and then now you're just scared to start him at all. Someone in the chat asked about Mason Miller in Oakland. He is just starting to throw. You through a bullpen session on Wednesday that was 20 pitches. I know there's a lot of people that are holding on him. He's still like 65% rostered in the main event, I think. But man, I mean, we talked about people picking him up. He threw so few innings last year that I thought they're going to be really safe on him no matter what. We talked about he threw way less innings than Yuri Perez did. We've seen what happened with Yuri Perez. I think Miller threw like 15 or 18 innings or something last year total. I think he's a drop still, even though he's throwing. I think maybe he makes some starts at the end of the array, but I don't think he makes enough starts deep into games that are going to matter.
Yeah, I think so too. He's not going to go deep enough, and
he's not.
He'd be shutdown mode too, pretty quick.
And why would they push him at all? Like, why would they throw him past 60, 70 pitches in any game? There's just no reason to do it. I mean, it's just
only to watch the bullpen blow it anyhow.
Exactly. Jazz Chisholm started a rehab assignment on Sunday. Sounds like he can be back fairly soon here. He's been out a bit. That'd be a nice name to get back. You mentioned Mookie Betts. We mentioned JD Martinez. Chris Sale, another guy who's on his way back. We talked about Lodolo and Hunter Green, but Chris Sale making a rehab start on Tuesday. Have you done any stashing of Chris Sale?
No, I haven't. I haven't found him available where I've tried to.
Yeah, he was. I had him a couple spots. It was kind of too early for me to stash, and I just needed other stuff. But he could be. You talk about the Red Sox not making a move. Maybe he's there. He could be the trade deadline move. He comes back and pitches well. That's a big ad for them.
It is. It's still though the get our injured player back is our big ad thing that I always hate. Because
he started out slow, but he was pitching really well before he got hurt. I think he went he had 3 or fewer runs his last 6 starts before he got hurt. So I think that's I'd like to see them do something plus add him, which would be good. Some minor pitcher notes if you're playing in deeper leagues. Tommy Henry went on the 15-day IL with an inflamed elbow. Arizona is falling apart pretty quick here. Anthony Desclafani with the Giants, 15-day IL with a forearm strain. Him and Nate Eovaldi had that. Wade Miley's back, though. Old Reds friend, rejoined the rotation on Wednesday.
Yay.
He's pitched really well.
Yeah, between injured stints, though, is the problem.
Yes.
He has pitched very well. He did shut down my Reds right before the All-Star break. Our Reds, sorry.
Someone asked a question. O'Neal Cruz back for September. Last I read on Cruz, they were kind of pulling back on him a little bit. I think that this is the Pirates. We talked about the age with Miller. Kind of the Pirates are the same. I think he'll play some in September. I just think it'll be like 2 games on, 1 off. I think it'll be frustrating fantasy wise. I just don't think they have no reason to push him. They have no reason to. It doesn't matter. They just want him to get 20 games at bats in before next year. I think it's kind of the only thing really they care about there.
Exactly.
Yeah, I've had people ask me about picking him up or not. I actually think he's a drop still. I just don't think he'll do enough fantasy wise to make him usable. Someone asked if we think Charlie Blackmon's worth a pickup in Maine. I do not myself. There's a chance they trade him too, which would be even worse if he's not on the Rockies. But I mean, he's got 265 with 5 home runs, does not run anymore. I just don't know what you get from Charlie Blackmon. You can't get from almost anybody pick him on the waiver wire.
Agreed. Also a question in the chat asking about Walker Buehler. I think he does pitch in September, and I think he pitches more in the playoffs, but I don't think it's going to be what you think. I think it's going to be like the David Price when he first got called up with the Rays sort of role. pitches like an inning or two of just hot fire out of the bullpen.
That was a fun David Price that year. That was, he was coming out just gassing people out of the bullpen. That was fun. Yeah. So I think fantasy wise, I don't think Buehler makes any sort of impact this year. I know he's been sharing videos of himself throwing, and he's done some bullpen sessions. But I think you're right. I think it's a 1 or 2 inning kind of stints later on. But
yeah.
Anybody else on your mind? Anything else you want to talk about before we let you jump out of here?
No, I'm good. I can't wait for the next 2 days. I'm very interested to see it.
It's always fun. Trade deadline is 3:00 Pacific on Tuesday. Before we get out of here, do you think the Reds make any sort of big move? Medium move? I think small move at all?
Small and medium, maybe.
Okay.
I thought they would have done something by this weekend. I wonder if the India trade just scuttled the India injuries scuttled a lot of their plans.
Yeah, that does mess them up. That like infield depth that they that was going to solve the problem to trade one, and suddenly that doesn't work anymore. So,
yeah.
Anyway, we really appreciate everybody listening. It's going to be an interesting week of baseball. It's tough with the deadline on Tuesday. You're setting lineups tomorrow or Tuesday morning. There's going to be guys that are useless in your lineup for the second half of the week just because they traded to spots or a starter get traded, won't make starts, that sort of thing. It'll be there'll be some definite hiccups. You'll have some closers in your lineup who aren't closers anymore, but makes it all fun. It makes the speculations the last couple of weeks will be maybe you hit on some guys if you picked up some closers that fall into roles. So
exactly.
Thanks everyone for listening. We do really appreciate that. If you could please rate or review the podcast, we appreciate that. If you want to follow Jeff on Twitter, he's at Jeff_Erickson. I am at Scott Jenstad. Other than that, we should be good to go here. Hope everybody's a really good week. We'll be back at you next Sunday night. Hope everybody has a good fantasy week and take care.